I thought this whole podcast was me interviewing you about why you're running a full node. Now you're just asking me questions and getting free advice. I don't understand what's going on.
Well, I'm surprised that you're surprised.
Yeah.
Welcome to Bitcoin Basics with your hosts, Faris and Gordon. Visit bitcoinbasics.help if you need help buying and securing your Bitcoin.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Bitcoin Basics podcast with your host, Gordon, that's me, and my partner in crime, Faris. Before we get started, let's do our proof recording. According to bitcoin.clarkmedia.com, the current price of Bitcoin is $42,085. And the current block height, again, all-time highs, and yes, I will use that joke until people get it, is 719,243. And $1 gives you 2,376 Satoshis. Faris, before we get started, you had a question for me.
Did I?
About the number of Tor nodes.
Oh, no, we'll get into that later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about a Bitcoin full node, and Faris has mentioned that he wants to set one up. So I'm going to ask him about this insanity. But before we get started, what is a Bitcoin full node?
So a few years ago, I heard someone basically not heard someone because we don't speak to people anymore. We read their comments. Read on Twitter someone saying that if you are a true Bitcoiner, you should be running a full node. Now, essentially, a full node is, as you heard Gordon earlier mention, the block height. So we're 760, just under 720,000 blocks mined in Bitcoin. So each block is a settlement of transactions. So a full node is you're basically downloading that entire history, that 720,000. That is maintaining the database of everything that is all Bitcoin transactions. So it is just under 440 gigs. So why would you download 440 gigs? Now, you actually get no reward because you're not mining Bitcoin. You're not involved in getting those transactions to be processed. So you get no reward for it. The reason you do it is essentially, so Bitcoin is decentralized, which means, let's just say that you had every Bitcoin node was running out of the United States of America, and you had a half a dozen running out of France. And for some reason, electricity and internet went out in all of America, and all the computers were wiped clean. They lost all the transactions for Bitcoin. Well, that's okay. If France was unaffected, then they could basically get back online by downloading the copies from France. Those 6 computers running in France still kept it going. So what a full node does is it's just keeping to date the settlement of accounts of everything that Bitcoin did. It's proof of work of all Bitcoin transactions that have ever taken place. So why would you download it? One is you're supporting the network. The more people download it, the more it just helps the network longer term. But there's another reason as well, and that is it can actually help you if you own Bitcoin and if you're transacting in Bitcoin, it can help with your privacy by running a Bitcoin node. Before I get into that, Gordon, how am I doing so far?
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, and share so we can find others like yourself.
You're good, Faris, and I'm going to ask the newbie questions, and there may be a lot of people here who have Bitcoin, and they may even have a hardware wallet or a software wallet or use an exchange or whatever, and they're like, Bitcoin node, why the hell do I need that? Sounds complicated, sounds scary, sounds like a complete waste of time. What you mentioned is a very important point. It does give you significantly more privacy, but what does it do? Let's say I have a Ledger hardware wallet. Why does running a Bitcoin full node give me more privacy?
So let's say you have a ledger and you want to send Bitcoins from your ledger to a separate wallet. So let's say you want to sell your Bitcoins. So you go from ledger and you want to send them to an exchange to sell your Bitcoins. To do that, a block explorer would actually have to confirm that you have those Bitcoins in your wallet. So you're transmitting that transaction to a third party who's confirming it. And they confirm that transaction. So you're getting a third party involved. You're releasing the address of your wallet, the public address. Whereas if you were doing that through a node, what you could do is you could, and this is probably a bit more tricky than it sounds, rather than using a third party to send your Bitcoins from your one wallet to another, you can send them directly to your node. So you set up your own node, and then you can set up your Ledger wallet to transact directly with your own node. Now, that's something that I read, Gordon. I haven't gotten into the weeds as to how you do that, or even if that's accurate information. So what's your take on that?
I don't know. I'm a complete noob. You'll have to find that out for yourself.
No, I don't like you playing the noob. in my line of work, my life, I go, that sounds complicated. I'll just ask Gordon. So yeah, having you in my life has eliminated so much time and money I can be in research.
Yeah, you should be.
Just ask you.
No, you're right. Usually, and again, we're going into the weeds, but I won't. Having a Bitcoin node is useful for all the things that you mentioned, for privacy, for verification. I think the key word is verification. You can verify addresses, and when it's time to send or receive something, let's say you have a ledger, it doesn't matter any wallet. Every single time, even if you open a wallet, you don't send or receive. Every time you open a wallet, that is phoning Homebase. So if you've got a ledger, a Trezor, or a software wallet, or obviously an exchange as well, even if you're just opening your wallet, that's actually confirming your balances, your transactions with that wallet's provider. So in the example of Trezor, as Faris said, just opening the Trezor wallet, you're actually phoning home through Trezor's Bitcoin full node. Why do that? Bitcoin is free and open source and permissionless. Why not just run your own node? So what you can do with pretty much most hardware devices and many software devices, you can set it up to not use the manufacturer's or developers' Bitcoin full node, but use your own full node. So as Faris said, the funds might be on the Ledger device, but the verification is being done via your own Bitcoin node in your basement or at your house.
So Gordon, with that, how easy or difficult is it to set that up where you go from your wallet to your own full node?
Oh, that's extremely easy. So most software, for example, Ledger Live or Trezor or Coldcard or whatever, enables you, by default, it just uses the manufacturer's one. But in the options, in the advanced options, the configuration, there'll be an area for use your own full node, and you just specify your IP address or whatever your full node is. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Okay. Setting up your full node is another story. That sounds super technical and super time consuming for us. Do you really want to do it?
So there's another question that I was going to ask you. One is, I know what you can do is, rather than downloading to our 440 gigabytes as is, you can just download the last 3 gigs. And all you need is 3 gigs to run so it just keeps the last 3 gigs. Kind of like think of it like a security video camera. If it's running for a year, it only keeps the last week's worth of footage. So it's the same thing from my understanding. Rather than downloading 440 gigs, you can do a light node where it just updates the most recent 3 gigs. So
sorry, I have to interrupt there because it's not entirely true. So what you're talking about is running the Bitcoin full node in what's called a pruned mode. And you'll see that word a lot. It's called pruned node. You still have to download the blockchain. So it's called the initial block download, IBB. So you still have to download 440 gigs or whatever it is up to now. I think it's, around about that. But after you've downloaded the entire blockchain, when it's up to date, you can then put it into what's called pruned mode. And it basically deletes all that data. And it keeps, I think it's around about 3 to 4 gigabytes. And it just runs in that prune mode. So essentially it just runs in, a very sort of light mode.
Okay. So with that, I know some of the stuff I've read they recommend you need to keep your computer going for at least 6 hours a day just to maintain the node. So are there any benefits or disadvantages to, say, running your own laptop for 6 hours a day while you use it, or just having a secondary laptop sitting in the garage running the full node separately?
I thought this whole podcast was me interviewing you about while you're running a full node. Now you're just asking me questions and getting free advice. I don't understand what's going on.
Well, I'm surprised that you're surprised.
Yeah. I looked at bitcoin.org. So bitcoin.org/full-node, which I think is what you're looking at as well, Faris.
Yeah.
And I'll get into some alternatives because there's actually a couple of things you may want to consider to make things easier. But yeah, that's what you do. You get an old laptop. It doesn't matter. Old laptop, old computer. One of my friends was running on an old Mac. I think it was one of the iMacs or whatever. I would say you'd need a minimum of 500 gigabyte hard drive for the initial block download. But after that, you don't need a lot. Don't try and do it an external SSD or an external card or whatever. It's going to take forever. Because what happens when the Bitcoin blockchain is being downloaded, the CPU then needs to process all the transactions. So it's basically doing a replay from the Genesis block 0, right until the current day. It's actually replaying the transactions on your computer, on your Bitcoin full node. And so if you've got a slow CPU and a slow hard drive, that's going to take forever and a day. So an old computer is fine. I mean, I've heard some people it's taken 3-4 weeks. I tried it on a Raspberry Pi, which is a $20 piece of software. It's just got a normal SSD, like a one you use in your old cameras. That took me about 2-3 days, the download and the processing of transactions. But yeah, anything, a Mac, a PC, whatever. But yeah, have a decent hard drive. I wouldn't use a spinning, those older kind of hard drives. If you can, I would buy maybe an SSD, but it's not necessary. It just take a lot longer. And yeah, that's all you need.
So Gordz, what's the security issue? Let's say you are running on a laptop and that has a full node. Let's say that gets stolen. That laptop gets stolen. Your Bitcoins are not compromised because they're not on there, just a verification process.
No, so
is that correct?
What you're doing is downloading the blockchain. So let's say there are 20,000. I don't know how many nodes there are at the moment. It's probably around about 20,000. Let's say there are 20,000 full nodes. Well, your laptop or your old computer that you're running Bitcoin full node on is just one copy of 20,000. There's nothing personally identified. There's no personal history or anything like that. You have the same data as 20,000 other Bitcoin nodes. That's how the blockchain works. It's 20,000 of these. I figured that, computers.
No, I know some people get paranoid about losing their Bitcoin. So if you're running a full node on a computer and it can get stolen, nothing to worry about.
No, and you could say it's the same with the hardware wallet. You have your hardware wallet that gets stolen as long as you got your 24 words, you're fine. Same with Bitcoin full node. You don't actually store any Bitcoin on your full node. It's just downloading the blockchain. However, with one caveat, if you download the Bitcoin core wallet, so you go to bitcoin.org and download their wallet, it will download like a Bitcoin wallet and it will do the initial Bitcoin blockchain download. What a lot of people do, and I highly recommend not doing this, a lot of people use this as an actual Bitcoin wallet as well. So they're running a Bitcoin full node and they've got the GUI and it's looking pretty, but then they actually send and receive money with that wallet as well. I think that's an incredible security risk. As you said, like if someone gets your hard drive or whatnot, it is encrypted, but here's the thing. When you are sending and receiving Bitcoin, your Bitcoin wallet, the file, which is actually called wallet.dat, that file is actually open. So when you are sending or receiving Bitcoin through the GUI, that file is actually open. It's unlikely, but if someone got access to that file, yes, it's got a password, yes, it's encrypted. It's not a great idea. So PSA, never, ever use your Bitcoin node as your actual Bitcoin wallet.
Okay, good to know. And tell me, Gordon, what is a Bitcoin core node?
Well, that's what it is.
Bitcoin Tor node.
Oh.
The Tor. Sorry.
Well,
I meant to ask you about Tor, but we're on core. What is a Bitcoin Tor node?
Well, referring to our last episode when we went through the Tor network, a Bitcoin Tor node is just a Bitcoin full node. Instead of running normally, it just runs over Tor. So it connects to the Tor network. And then before you've even done your initial block download, you're connected to the Tor network, and all the other Tor nodes, all the other Bitcoin nodes don't see your real IP address.
Okay. Cool. Now, that's all I believe I had to consider for running a full node. Is there anything I have not asked you that I should have asked you?
There are plenty of things, but I want you to discover them for yourself. One of the things is considering, and I think you're going the vanilla way. The vanilla way is to go to bitcoin.org, download the GUI wallet. You probably want to install Linux. You can run it on Mac or Windows, but I'm a huge open source Linux advocate. Mm-hmm. But essentially what you're doing is grabbing an old piece of hardware, installing Linux on it, doing the Linux system updates, making it secure, whatever, downloading the Bitcoin Core Node software, and then running that and waiting 1 to 2 days, 1 to 2 weeks, depending on your hardware. Bang, then you've got a Bitcoin full node. But, how do you connect into your Bitcoin full node? How does it communicate? It has to communicate. For example, I would run it over Tor for sure. How do you connect to it? If it's at home or a different location, how do you actually connect into it? Blah, blah, blah. So it's not just Linux and a Bitcoin Core node. There are other applications on top of it, whatever. Clever people have sort of set up a Linux distribution, or what we call Linux flavor, which has all that stuff inbuilt into it. So it's Linux plus a Bitcoin Core plus Electrum server plus Tor server plus VPN, blah, 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 blah. And two I recommend, I'm not necessarily saying you should do it. Two I recommend is Umbrel. And you can go to getumbrel, getumbrel.com. And the other one is mynodebtc.com. They essentially do what you're going to do, but they've already pre-packaged it, pre-processed it. Everything's ready to go. You just download it and you literally install it from a USB. And it's pretty straightforward. And, it's just saving you 20 hours of work or whatever the configuration is. Of course, you have to trust them. So there's another layer of trust there, but they're using all open source and it's all transparent, whatever. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't go through the pain and agony yourself of doing it the Bitcoin Core way. But you might want to just go to either one of these. I would suggest GetUmbrel. I've used them and I like them. They're up to date and they do essentially what I would have done anyway. And they give you a whole suite of applications. And in the future, you want to do Lightning. They've already got a Lightning node already integrated into it, so you don't have to configure that. It's actually really cool. GetUmbrel is pretty cool. It's DIY. It's free. Check it out.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Gordon. And just as a plug, guys, if anyone's interested in running not just a node, but if you're concerned about your digital footprint and your privacy online, please go to decentralized.help. We talked about this in our previous episode. This is a service that Gordon has set up where we've had a lot of people coming to us and say, I want to buy Bitcoin. I want to store Bitcoin long-term, but I also want to ensure that I am the master of my own data. And this is a service that Gordon set up where he basically shows you how you can still be online while not being visible or not having your personal IP address and a lot of other stuff that we tend to post online, which we are unaware that we do. So go to decentralized.help to find out about being a sovereign digital individual.
Excellent. Thanks, Faris. And good luck setting up your Bitcoin full node. Perhaps we'll do a part 2 when you're in the middle of doing it and at your absolute worst, and I'll interview you and see how you're going.
Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share so we can spread this educational content to others like yourself. Visit bitcoinbasics.help.
Disclaimer. Any content provided by CoinCompass is for educational and informational purposes only and is not investment, legal, tax, or any other professional advice. A qualified professional should be consulted before making any financial decisions. Coin Compass will at times recommend certain products, services, and technologies, but these are opinions based upon our own or podcast guests' experience and not endorsements. We take no liability for out-of-date or inaccurate information, software bugs, manufacturing errors, technology misuse, or issues involving third parties. Visit coincompass.com for more information and please contact us.